It's Nile TV.
It's exactly 3 p.m. here in Cairo, time for Panorama News. Egypt hosts a global congress on population, health and development. Prime Minister Madbouli participates in Africa Climate Summit in Kenya. Gabon new leader sworn in as interim president in scene of jubilation. President Fattah al-Sisi said the Global Congress on Health, Population and Development is an important platform to discuss population. He was speaking Tuesday at the inauguration of the Congress, which he said will be held annually. The President said financial resources directed to education cannot be increased under the increased population rate. He said Africa's population is projected to reach 1.6 billion in the near future, adding that overpopulation is one of the biggest challenges facing Egypt. President Sisi said reproduction freedom is not ultimate because it is tied to the development file. He said it's important to support role of the National Council for Population and directed that the Prime Minister presides over the council. President Sisi said the costs of wars Egypt went through have affected resources directed to face overpopulation. The President also attended the first session of Global Conference on Population, Health and Development, dubbed the Population and the Future of Healthcare Challenges and Chances. Addressing the session, he said the state has exerted tremendous efforts to overcome overpopulation. He said the past 10 years witnessed also big efforts in all paths to overcome the gap between population growth rates and the aimed for population rate. And the Global Congress on Population, Health and Development was held in Cairo under the auspices of President Sisi on Tuesday. Addressing the event, Health Minister Khaled Abdel Ghaffar said overpopulation is the biggest challenge facing development countries, saying it is 6-decade-old problem. In his address, he reviewed efforts to reduce population growth rates. He said Egypt is nominated to increase by 70 million in the coming 10 years. Abdel Ghaffar said family planning is the largest project that has been adopted. He also reviewed the most significant Egyptian family health scanning indicators and the features of the National Strategy for Population. Organizers said the event drew the attendance of 8,000 participants. And during his participation in Africa Climate Summit in Kenya on behalf of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli gave a speech at the International Climate Agenda session. Addressing the session, Madbouli stressed on the necessity of providing necessary funding to face repercussions of global climate changes, which needs reconsidering current funding and reviewing criteria of the flow of investments into Africa. This is in addition to putting a mechanism to using debts and transform them to climate funding. The Prime Minister also underscored the necessity of commitment by the developed countries to meet their vows of providing $100 billion annually to climate financing and necessity of boosting multilateral system based on equality and considering conditions of each country. National dialogue continues on Tuesday, the second session of the 6th week of dialogue. The Economic Access Committee holds a number of sessions to discuss the files of high prices and means of facing this phenomenon to ease the burden on the citizens, in addition to alternatives to decrease the public debt and increase benefit of local or international debts, in addition to industrial aims and map on the short and long run, and also discussing current and struggling industries. The national dialogue is due to wrap up the 6-week sessions with the discussions of social access committees next Thursday on cultural industries, youth political empowerment, support of students' unions and activities. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry holds talks on Tuesday with his Japanese counterpart Yoshimasa Hayashi. The talks tackle bilateral relations between Cairo and Tokyo and means of boosting them in different fields, in addition to issues of mutual concern. The two top diplomats of Egypt and Japan also hold joint press conference at the end of the meeting. Shoukry also receives on Tuesday the Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, Philip Lazzarini. And the Kurdish-led forces were sending reinforcements to eastern Syria, Deir Zur province, amid days of clashes with Arab fighters loyal to a detained local official. Fighting erupted after the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces detained Ahmed al-Qabil, head of the Deir Zur Military Council, on August 27th. The violence in several towns and villages in Kurdish-controlled areas of Deir Zur province has killed 71 people, mostly fighters, but also 9 civilians. SDF spokesman Farhad Shami said his forces were trying to settle the situation in Diban, the last town where fighters loyal to Qabil were concentrated. Ukraine saw more than 900 cluster munition casualties in 2022 amid broad Russian use of the widely banned weapons, driving global casualty figures to a record high, according to monitoring group. Details follow.
Shot down at least 3 Ukraine-launched drones early Tuesday that were targeting the country's capital. The Russian Defense Ministry said its air defense systems destroyed 2 drones over the Kaluga and Tver regions, which border the Moscow region, as well as one closer to the capital over the Estra district of Moscow region. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said the drones were trying to carry out an attack on Moscow and that a consumer services facility was damaged in the Estra district, which is located some 65 kilometers northwest of the Kremlin. The mayor added that there was no damage or casualties elsewhere. Sobyanin said that drone debris in the Tver region fell near a village. Russian news agencies reported that almost 50 flights were cancelled or postponed early Tuesday from the major airports around the capital, Moscow. Drone attacks on Russian targets, notably in Crimea and in regions bordering Ukraine, have become almost daily occurrences since 2 drones were destroyed over the Kremlin in early May.
Niger's new appointed prime minister said he saw hopes of a deal in the coming days with the West African bloc ECOWAS, which has threatened to use force to restore civilian rule after a coup in July. He also said that contacts were underway over a very swift pullout of French forces from Niger after ties with France spiraled down towards following the military takeover. ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States, has slapped hefty sanctions against Niger after rebel soldiers on July 26 overthrew Mohamed Bazoum, the country's democratically elected president. It has also warned several times of intervening militarily to reinstate him should diplomatic attempts to resolve the crisis fail. And the leaders of a coup that ousted Gabon's President Ali Bongo was sworn in as interim president and cheered by jubilant supporters in a televised ceremony. designed to cast the military as liberators of an oppressed society. Details follow.
Thousands of Gabonese, many of them voicing joy and relief as a new era dawned, on Monday watched the inauguration of the military chief who last week toppled the Bongo dynasty, the rulers of their oil-rich state for more than half a century. General Brice Oligui Nguema took the oath of office as president 5 days after he toppled President Ali Bongo, the son of Omar Bongo, who ruled with an iron fist for more than 4 decades. Oligui defended the movement as a courageous move by the army to save Gabon from bloodshed after elections that awarded victory to Bongo. And he promised to steer the country to free, transparent and credible elections, but gave no details on the time frame. A crowd gathered at the plaza in front of the Hassan II Mosque in Libreville to watch the ceremony on a giant screen, many of them waving little tricolor flags with the national colors of green, yellow and blue. In West and Central Africa's 8th political movement in 3 years, army officers led by General Brice Oligui Nguema seized power on August 30th, minutes after an announcement that Bongo had won an election they annulled and said was not credible. The movement drew cheering crowds onto the streets of the capital Libreville, but condemnation from abroad, including from Central African Regional Bloc ICAS, which said on Monday it was suspending Gabon until a return to constitutional order. Rich with oil from offshore fields first discovered in the 1970s, Gabon has one of the highest per capita GDPs in Africa. But a third of the population still lives below the poverty line of $5.50 per day, according to the World Bank.
And U.S. officials said that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un may travel to Russia soon to meet with the President Vladimir Putin as the Kremlin tries to acquire military equipment for use in its war in Ukraine. Details follow.
The U.S. said Monday it expects North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to make a rare trip abroad to meet President Vladimir Putin in Russia, where they are likely to discuss arms for Moscow's war in Ukraine. Ukraine is pushing a highly scrutinized counteroffensive in both the south and east that Putin dismissed on Monday as a failure, though Moscow appears eager to secure more military supplies to bolster its forces. The Kremlin said on Tuesday it was unable to confirm a summit between Putin and Kim. The White House's National Security Council NSC spokeswoman Adrienne Watson said arms negotiations